YouTube, it's Brian Phillips. Look what we got here. Brand new from FMS, V3 F-18 64. We're gonna show this flight as it really is designed to be. You'll notice I have some touch up with my marker here. That's because we took the missiles off the bottom. We'll talk about it in some detail. But yes, this thing is designed to be a belly lander. Make no mistake, it comes with some beautiful gear and tons of ordnance, but don't even bother flying it that way. We'll show you right now. 2200 4S50C pack, and we're gonna launch that direction. Okay, full safe with hand launch assist. We're gonna go full throttle and launch it that way. There we go, okay? So now we're out of safe. We're gonna fly it in AS3X. We put our control horns back to the recommended spot. Look at that thing shine. AS3X Plus is right here with us. Camera crew's moving back. As you can see, plenty of ups. Come right to the edge, please. But just remember, you don't have rudders, so don't do what I just did there. Turning down the master gains and right down the pipe. F-18. The thing goes straight as an arrow because it's got nowhere else to go. We're at 30 for our roll rate in both AS3X and safe. And we have our master gains down a little bit. We're doing inside pass here. You good? Mm-hmm. Hard on the throttle and up, hoping the sun will give us a little bit of reprieve with these clouds. Train your sides. We're going downhill. Beautiful. The thing is greasy. It's fast on a 50C pack, 2200. Look at that thing coming back to planet Earth like it's in a hurry. 2 steps to your left. Stop. So this thing will cruise around with no gear and no ordnance, and it's gonna give you a very comfortable 5-minute flight time or more. But I gotta tell you something right now. This plane, even in the wind, will do just fine. As soon as you throw the gear on and you try to fly it, it's gonna be a totally different ball of wax. It's just like the F-16 and the 64. You know, it just does not hold up. It's got way too much drag going on. But as you can see, the ups are fantastic on 64 with this thing clean, okay? Don't mount the missiles on the bottom. They are glued on. You have to unglue them. That's not cool. The LEDs are bright. The plane flies okay. I'd really like to see rudders, folks. Why do we not have rudders on this plane? You'll have to ask FMS that, because I think it is a goofy decision to not have rudders on this particular plane going high and then coming down. The AS3X Plus has the thing locked in, even though it is quite windy right now. It is cold and windy, but it's gonna be a polar vortex in the next couple of days, so I said we better get this thing done. High-speed pass. Guys, high-speed passes are scary without rudders, because that's how I correct, especially at presentation times. Let's jank it here. Janking it. As you can see, the thing is locked in almost so much that you can't get out of the interlockings. Inside pass this time, camera crew, you good? Beautiful. And the roll rate is still pretty tremendous. That's half a stick input. Before we had them in the outside holes, and it was insane roll rate. We could not get the AS3X dampened enough to make it work well, because there was just such a big disparity between the pitch and roll and all that. That being said, I'm sure somebody could do it. We just didn't. And the reason we did that is so we could make flaperons work. I'm gonna come into some takeoff flaperons here. As soon as I get out of this movement here, here's takeoff flaps. I'm gonna show you landing flaps. Remember, you got no rudder, so your roll rate is reduced quite a little bit. But look at that thing slowed down, guys. That 50% throttle. Okay, out of the flaps, hard on the throttle. We had a nice little roll there as we came out of it. A little bit of oscillation and wing rock on the hard, sharp turns. Remember, we're not dealing with full functioning stabilators here like you would on a real F-18. We just have the trailing edge as an elevator, okay? Now you can set up televons if you want. We set ours up with AS3X and safe. When I say AS3X, I mean AS3X Plus. We are running ours just a hair tail heavy. This is our timer going right over the sun and then down the runway if we can get it into visibility. You good? Okay, here we go. But that's pretty much what you're gonna get with this plane, guys. High speed maneuvering, camera crew to the center. Right here, good job. I'm not sure exactly what direction we're gonna get this landing. We're gonna try some takeoff flaps. And I like the line, but I don't like the fact that we're gonna lose it for visibility. So what I'm gonna try is I'll try just going in front. Camera crew about 3 steps forward. Okay. Remember, no rudders, so you're just getting veered off. If you got a nice crosswind, it'll definitely make you earn it, okay? In fact, it's gonna make me earn it so much, I gotta fly way around here just to make the turn, guys. The bank and yank, it's only gonna do so much for you here, okay? You good? Oh, look at my missile. Okay, so we got a nice landing there. There was a piece of grass that I caught on the next to last pass.
Oh.
And you'll see it right here on my right wing, right next to the nav lights. So, guys, if you get this plane, I just want to talk to you about this real quick. We've seen this a number of times before. Broke the missile off. This may have been just finishing the job from earlier. I can't remember which side broke. We're going to show you all 3 flights. At Brian Phillips RC, we show the full truth, nothing but the truth, so help us God. And I just got to say, if you're hoping for everything to everybody out of this plane, get ready to be disappointed. 64 millimeter EDF jets are very limited in their control authority as it is, especially a long, slender F-18 like this. This thing is fast, it's agile, but why do we not have full directional controls? That's a good question, okay? I'm thinking they just thought it would not make sense from a cost component, but let me tell you something. When you plan on belly landing a plane, you can't put a bunch of decorative details like this. Because the thing is, every time I've landed this, I've had something break. And that was not a bad landing, it was a good landing, in fact. And it was on a short surface, okay? So all I've got to say about this plane is buy it for what it is and what it's not. If buy it for what it is.
Not for what it's
not. For what it's not. And what it's not is a wheels up, wheels down, full ordnance creature. It is not gonna do it, okay? We showed it in our maiden flight, and we will show it right here. This is our 3rd flight or 4th?
Fourth, actually.
And I'm gonna tell you, where this plane will shine is a dead calm day that's warm, not 10 degrees.
Yeah.
And at least 2,200, that's a 50 pack. We're pulling it as hard as we can pull without causing problems, okay? And our CG, we're just behind the CG mark. A couple things we really like about this plane is the beautiful air intakes. The CG's already marked. It's cool that it comes with the Ordnance, but honestly, it really doesn't do you any good on this plane because you can't handle that much drag, okay? Also, I will tell you this, landing flaps, takeoff flaps are sort of irrelevant. And just so you know, we did move this back to that hole, recentered these surfaces. In our unbox build radio setup, we had them all the way to the outside, which gave us a ton of throw. So it seemed like it was gonna be pretty helpful, but as you know, with outboard ailerons, you just don't need that much on an F-18, okay, for flaperons. You got plenty of elevator correction. You can get the thing to do what you need to do with this much throw. Any more, and it's insane. I would almost say you could go in one more hole and have this thing calm down quite a bit. I did take my AS3X on the roll axis down to 30 from 40. We eventually were at 20, but that was when our holes were out here and I still couldn't overwhelm it, even with the gains up past 50%, okay? The thing just wanted to overcorrect too much, okay? Now, that might be a good place for us to play with the stop lock and the release rates, but I just don't have any intentions of doing that in these conditions, which is part of the reason why releasing a plane that's a belly lander in the middle of winter to us seems like a kind of a misnomer. We're not sure why you wouldn't release this in the springtime, unless of course you're trying to hit Chinese spring, because I guess they are on the other side of the planet. But my understanding is they're pretty close to where we had our seasons. So I don't know, I could be missing something. Maybe I'm not, but as far as I know, we're in central Iowa and they're gonna be almost at the same latitude, longitude. So it's big country, but all I've got to say is I really like the plane. I like that it's a licensed product. I don't like that every single time I fly it, something breaks. That's really annoying. Something breaks, okay? And I don't like that you have two different size screws to take off the landing gear. The landing gear are gorgeous. They actually do work pretty good. But the thing is, I'm not gonna fly this thing with wheels up, wheels down. If it's the only plane you've ever had with wheels up, wheels down, you won't believe how big of a difference in performance it is between this clean and this dirty. It's almost not the same plane, okay? It is not the same plane. It is really poorly performing with all that stuff on, okay? But with it clean, it does pretty good until you have to put down and then plan on breaking something, even if you have a good landing, okay? So you can take the Ordnance off, increase your visibility, but then it just doesn't look right. The F-18 should at least have the missile rails, okay? So just my 2 cents worth. We're gonna let you guys see all the rest of the flights and you can make up your own mind, because here on Brian Phillips RC, we wanna just give you our findings and let you work with them, okay? So at the end of the day, is it a good plane? Yes. Is it a good plane for wheels up, wheels down? No. Is it a good plane with Ordnance? Not really. It's very lame. It's not gonna be fun at all. I would just definitely buy this for what it is, which is a hand launch platform. It's gonna give you some level of fun, but I'm really disappointed that it doesn't have more control authority, because with rudders, you could make this thing do a lot and it'd be a very good F-18, okay? Also, it doesn't chew packs because the 64 is a single and it's not powered wrong, okay? But to have enough power to fly with 4 Ordnance and gear off, this thing would be a stinking rocket ship clean, okay? So I think they're just trying to strike the middle ground, and they did hit it. But I gotta say something. When I see these planes that are sold and marketed in a way that they're gonna be wheels up, wheels down, all this, I really expect them to perform better, okay? Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. If you buy one from the links in the video description below, you'll help support Brian Phillips RC and all the stuff we do RC. We appreciate you doing that. It does earn us small commissions, and that's how we fund our channel and things like that that are going over there. That is a huge building pad for a full-scale hangar we're building, among other things, a damn gift shop. And we'll talk about it in more detail when it's not this dang cold. But the truth is, we owe you guys a debt of gratitude, because we are doing this. We've been doing it for 9 years. Happy New Year's. If you're watching this right around New Year's, we appreciate you very much. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for subscribing, for buying from the links in the video description below. That is the number 2 and number 1 ways you can help us, is just watch, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, smash the like button when you see something you enjoy. If we saved you from buying the wrong thing, smash the like button. Oh, and then also, is this a good beginner first plane? No, absolutely not. Terrible first plane. There's about 10 better choices you could come up with that are gonna be equally fun. Remember, fun does not necessarily have to be shaped this sexy, okay? It can be totally ugly and be a great experience flying. And it can be totally beautiful and be a terrible experience flying. But we've had both of both, okay? And every combination in between, because we've done so many of these. Guys, we're giving you good advice. I know sometimes it hurts to hear because you're brand new and you really, really want an F-18. Not this one, not now if you're brand new. If you're coming back, if you've got the basic stick skill, go for it. You'll enjoy it, but you're gonna enjoy it for what it's worth and not what you think it should do. Because the truth is, it doesn't do those other things. And that's exactly what we said about the F-16 that we did not too long ago. That's available in Blue Angels and Gray. We have links to that too. If you want to see something else we've done in the past, check out brianphillipsrc.com, or you can go to bprc.me. That's our short link for the same domain, which is our website. And you can find one or more of the many of thousands of videos that we have right here on YouTube. So thanks for another great year on Brian Phillips RC 2025. Give us your best shot. Stay tuned. The rest of the flight's coming next. YouTube, it's Brian Phillips, all new from FMS, the FA-18 Hornet, fully outfit with all the Ordnance. This is gonna be our true maiden flight 2200 4S, 64 millimeters, fixed gear, beautiful setup, actually spring-loaded oleo on the front, even though this thing screams. Take my gear off, take my missiles off, and fly me like I should, which is what we're gonna do eventually, but we gotta start somewhere, so we're gonna start with the Ordnance on. And we'll see how this thing flies. AS3X Plus equipped. We used an AR-630, stuffed inside and upside down. You guys will see in the unbox build radio setup. Everything's ready to rock and roll. Are you ready to do this? Mm-hmm. Oh, and don't forget thrust reverse. So here's a little controllable thrust reverse just to show you. Okay, here we go, guys. Take off. Flaps could be used, but I'm not gonna. Here we go. She's in the air. She's wheezing along. All 64 millimeters of her power system. Feels pretty solid, actually. I mean, it's a little bit of overcorrection. Now, if you get that, guys, what do? Turn down your stabilizer just a little bit, or nose up, slow the plane down if you can't get to it quick enough. Guys, these planes with full Ordnance packs, let's take one step to your right, quick, thank you. And gear are just gonna be kinda doggy. It's already beeping. Relaxing out of the throttle. China hobby lines for this one. We got to get out of, that's 3.6 volts, does not mean it's dead. Brand new pack, it's not beeping anymore. Predator branded voltage pack here. There we go. Oh, by the way, no rudder, but you do technically have a rudder because the steerable nose wheel, when installed. But I'm just gonna tell you this, guys. You're gonna get some scale flight performance with the Ordnance. Okay, I'm gonna just try something real quick. We'll just, oh yeah, it's got good roll authority. A little bit of overcorrection there. Getting out of the throttle. Yeah, you're gonna have to be real careful when you put all this stuff on here because it gets real dang heavy, real dang quick. Good on pitch authority, pretty easy to fly for an F-18, going to the low point. We're gonna try taking a landing, folks. You know what's weird about this plane? Pilot fatigue, yep. And that's what we tried to stop, throttle cuts on, and that's what we learned about the Predator ESC. And we talk about it a lot in the unbox. Mm-hmm. If you're not below 50% throttle, it doesn't switch for sure, in or out of thrust reverse. And like what happened there, I don't know why. We were completely out of throttle. So it may have something to do with the rotation of the motor, and therefore it tries to start it and it just goes the wrong way. So it becomes a motor timing issue, and that's how we ended up so far. I tried my thrust reverse, it didn't work. Now, I also have flaperons installed on this, and you'll see all about it in the unbox build radio setup. But let's go check and see what type of damage was sustained. I think a lot like our recent review on the Viper, we're gonna end up having a wheels up, wheels down, only under the most severe circumstances. We did break one missile, flipping over. Camera crew is gonna hold this for me so I can carefully hold this plane. Also, I did note, yep, we broke this missile too, which to be honest with you is not gonna matter because you know where these are gonna basically go?
In the storage
Basically
pile.
in the storage pile, because the thing is, this plane cannot handle that much drag. It just does not have the juice for it. Now keep in mind, the landing gear are absolutely fantastic looking, and they also are spring-loaded. That was not a bad landing attempt.
No, the landing was good. The geese are...
There's like 4 million geese trying to go over our property. Yeah, there they are. So at the end of the day, are you gonna fly this thing with all the Ordnance? No, not unless you redo the system somehow. But full disclosure, I did want to have the wingtip Ordnance on because as you can see, it comes off and on super easy. And the only ones that don't are the ones that you really need to take off for belly landing. Guys, you're interrupting our video.
They're so loud. Are they gonna land though on the?
I don't know. So as you can see, this plane comes equipped with a lot of ordnance. It's gonna take me like 6 or 7 minutes just to take it off of here, okay? And I think once the ordnance gets off of here, this plane is gonna wake up and it's gonna be a completely different creature. Now, unfortunately for you and me, we don't have any more time to fly right now. And so I'm basically gonna take all this crap off camera. I'm gonna take the landing gear off, which did work. So if you're wheels up, wheels down, just remember, if you're flying it dirty, you're doing presentation passes, you might do a couple of rolls, but you're not getting much out of it. Also, I need to crank down my roll authority on the stabilizer because we did go to the outside hole on this servo and that so that we could get our takeoff flaps and landing flaps. I did not even try them because, to be honest, it didn't need them. Now, it's easy to say that now, but everybody would have screamed, why didn't you set up flap rounds? We want help doing it. Well, we did, and it does take a lot of effort to set up some of these additional features, which is why you need to check out the unbox build radio setup. You guys can see that one, it just broke. It'll be an easy China glue, rinse it off with warm water or cold water, and it'll be done. And then this missile also broke. Truth in RC. That's what we do on Brian Phillips RC. The full truth, nothing but the truth, so help us God. Yeah, that's a lot of drag, folks.
Yeah.
So if you take that stuff off, you're gonna be way better off in terms of flight performance, flight envelope, and everything. It feels like it's gonna fly good though. And you might wanna slide your battery back about a 1/4 inch or so. We'll show all the details in the unbox build radio setup. Also, if you haven't seen one of our unbox build radio setups lately, they are really long because we go into so much detail because we just know that there's a lot of you that are just getting into the hobby, getting grass out of there, guys. You gotta get the grass out. There's nothing you can do worse for an EDF than to have a giant piece of, you know, like wet grass stick in there because it can dry and cause that thing to be out of balance so bad it blows itself up. That being said, we go through so much detail so that you don't have to know off the top of your head, okay? They're long, they're somewhat tedious, and we understand that because we're just trying to look out for you guys so you can have a good experience. And you guys already saw exactly what you needed to see on this plane. 64 barely gets the job done if you want ordnance. I said that in the unbox. I knew it was gonna be true. You could push it, but you'd have to fly a high volt pack or something because this 30C China Hobby Lines 2200 4S is brand new. It's like maybe 2 flights or no, it was like basically unbox build radio setup. We did drain one of them trying to get that reverse thrust worked out. Also, if your reverse thrust would have deployed pilot Brian Phillips, that thing would have stopped.
Yes.
Okay. I think it would have worked. And also it did pretty dang good in the grass, but we're in the middle of, you know, winter. We've got this kind of like short grass in the middle of summer. I don't think that's going to be so true. Okay. Can you argue with the looks? Look how dang good this thing looks. Go up here and show them the nose. This thing has such high detail just so you can run off the end of the runway because your thrust reverse didn't activate, okay? So it's a real problem. I don't know why that's always true on some of the small models, but it doesn't seem to be an issue on the 90s. Maybe it's something about the way the firmware works, but I can tell you we discovered the 50% rule. So watch the unbox build radio setup. If you choose to hook up the reverse thrust, you have to tie it high or low or it will not work. It may turn on partway through a flight, which we've seen a couple of guys complaining about that on other FMS products with Predator ESCs. I've never experienced that myself, but I watch them experience it. So just be careful. If you hook it up, tie it high, tie it low, meaning minus 100 usually gets you forward thrust and plus 100 in the Spectrum world gets you reverse thrust, okay? Hopefully we answered all your questions. Yes, these are nice and springy. No, I did not break anything rolling off the landing strip, which is great because there's been a lot of planes crashing lately and it's unfortunate. One of them just went off the end of a runway yesterday in China or something like that, which is too bad. It was a big fireball.
Oh, that's
this thing was not a big fireball, but we did break a missile in half, and so that breaks my heart too. So if you guys don't want to break your heart, watch our videos. Learn from our mistakes and our unluckies, whatever you want to call them, our misfortune, and you can apply it to your own situation. If you want to help support Brian Phillips RC for the little bit of value that we bring in these unbox build radio setups and Maiden flights, look no further than the links in the video description below. You can buy this exact plane. You can have this thing show up at your doorstep. You can watch the unbox build radio setup and follow along and do all the things we did, except for the things that we found didn't work great. And it's that easy. It is a big time commitment. If you want to learn, we'll teach you. Brian Phillips RC is here for you. That being said, don't forget to smash the like button on the way out so that YouTube pushes this out to other people. And if you don't want to support us by buying this plane, or maybe you've already got it and you're just looking into it, then you can also check the video description below for the servos, or not the servos so much, but the receivers, the transmitters, the batteries that we used, all that good stuff. We'll link to smart batteries and the China Hobbyline batteries that we used today in this flight. We'll probably go ahead and try a brand new Spectrum pack to see if it helps a little bit. But just full disclosure, if you use a 637T, you'd have pack telemetry, which might give you a little bit of an edge. Plus the smart batteries are going to automatically balance. Oh, and hard plastic tip and then foam. Press in clip style, not magnetic. Magnetic, it probably would have broke, okay? So, also I gotta say, ground handling was pretty dang good for being an F-18. F-18s and F-16s both like to tip really bad, but F-18s have a longer wheelbase, and so on this one, it did pretty dang good, I would say. Even though our Predator ESC let us up.
Yeah.
Did you catch that?
I did. That was
okay,
great.
I'm glad you did.
That's a good bad joke.
All right, guys, that's all we got for you on this flight. We'll come back with some hand launching, and yes, those had to be glued on, and yes, ours was wrong, and you'll see it in the unbox build radio setup. We got two, that would be right wing missiles, and they actually painted the left wing like a left wing, which is how we ended up with it. We'll show you how to modify it in case yours shows up that way too, so that it will fit on your aircraft. But just keep in mind, belly landings are gonna rip those things off and cause massive damage. So if you know for sure you're going belly landing, which I had a strong suspicion we would, then don't even glue them in. It's a waste of your time. In fact, don't glue them in because they're just gonna cause damage, and I would suggest highly that you don't, okay? Of all the times we need magnetically attached missiles, this was it, FMS, okay? Guys, use this thing, please, because we have to live with your consequences. All right, that's all I got. And yes, I was talking to them, not you. That being said, beautiful plane otherwise, good power. I mean, it's not anything crazy to write home about in terms of power, but the scale lines, this is a Boeing licensed product. The scale lines are beautiful on this plane. I want to see it fly like a jet. Right now, it flies like an underpowered Cessna made of foam that's shaped like a jet. To steal one from John. All right, guys, that's all we got for you today. Also, if you want to support us in other ways, you just can't have this plane, you don't want this plane, you want something bigger, you want something better, you want something faster, there's tons of other stuff on bprc.me. You can check it out anytime you want. Thousands of videos right for you to enjoy this second. Or you can also find something else you want to buy. We have buy it links there. And then you can also support us on Patreon, monthly support, YouTube super thanks for one-time donations, and YouTube memberships for monthly support as well. And then there's also PayPal. If you want to just throw us a few bucks, that's always much appreciated. But the truth is, we'd rather you buy planes. We'd rather you buy batteries, ESCs, chargers, things like that we review on this channel, because it helps us to perpetuate relationships, or we can get away with calling them out on their stupidity, which does occasionally happen, and it's disappointing, because I'm going to tell you what, this plane really should be a hand launch belly land plane, period. Or without Ordnance, and we'll probably by rights, we probably will fly it without Ordnance once, except for the inboard glued on ones, and we'll see how it performs. It's going to perform considerably better, but I still think it's going to be a little weak. So we'll get you as much as we can, and stay tuned. Coming up right now. All right, folks, so we think the reason that the reversing is not working, AKA anything 50% or greater on the throttle stick in a static test, like on the bench, it will not switch. When it's below 50%, it does switch. But when you've got enough inertia and wind passing through this little wind tunnel that is the passage of the airplane, it spins the motor. And so when it's spinning, it just keeps going that same direction. So my pilot fatigue mode just makes it give you full throttle times like 120%, okay? So it's not good. All right, so with throttle cut off, we're gonna reprogram this ESC. Throttle stick all the way up. I found a manual that says Beatles manual. I don't know if that's right, but the one that's on The other red Predator ESC doesn't seem to be telling us what to do. Okay, so we want to listen for 3 beeps. You can take my word for it or download the manual. I'll tell you when that you're entering. Okay, so now that we're in, we're listening for the first beep. 2 beeps down. Now 1 beep is off for braking. 2 beeps is soft brake. 3 beeps is medium brake. 4 beeps is hard brake, all the way up and down. Now that should exit. You normally wouldn't hear the beep beep. So throttle cuts off. That's braking. Look at that thing stop.
Yeah.
You can tell it's stopping it. So now I want to try this thrust reverse. So throttle cut is off. Forward thrust, that's braking, or excuse me, not braking, but thrust reverse. Now thrust reverse with the throttle stick all the way down, going into pilot fatigue, it does produce thrust reverse, but it did not change anything. Okay, so throttle cuts off, throttle under 50%, going to thrust reverse did switch. And it stays in thrust reverse. Pilot fatigue is still thrust reverse, okay? Now going back to forward thrust, we have forward thrust, okay? Now going between that and thrust reverse, I'm at 52%. It's not switching. When I drop below, it works. Show them, right here. See that line? That's the halfway point. If I'm at 51%, it's doing thrust reverse. But it's not switching back to forward thrust until I drop below 50. Now we've isolated the problem to only the stick position, okay? You may have to do this yourself. So if you want to just show them this right here, this is the chart, okay? So this is the motor reversing function. So you want to make sure that's on, which in our case, we turned it on a bunch of times, but it was already on. The default is supposed to be off, but it's on. And then I did hard braking. Now you could do less braking, that's your call. So I'm gonna just go through this process one more time so you understand. I'm gonna just say it out loud. You're gonna shut off your throttle cut, you're gonna go full throttle, okay? You're gonna secure the plane, so just be ready to grab it. If you're in thrust reverse, it's gonna take off and go backward, so make sure you're in forward thrust. Then you're gonna plug it in, you're gonna wait for the weird beeps. So it's like 3 or 4 beeps in, that means you're in the menu. Then beep 1, that'd be your throttle, your thrust reverse on or off function. It should be on by default. If you want to go in and change that, then you would press down, and then it's going to enter that, and then it's going to go between 1 and 2, and 1, and then 2, and then 1, and then 2. When you get the one you want, you go all the way up, and then back down within 2 seconds. That accepts the choice. Then it's gonna reboot. You have to go back into the menu doing the same process. So you'll unplug your battery, throttle cut off, throttle stick all the way up, plug back in the battery, wait for the series of beeps. You wanna go to the second option. Then the second option, when you go into it, then you're gonna listen for the series of beeps that correspond to the one you want. In our case, I wanted the hardest braking just to see if it fixes the problem, as opposed to none, okay? Braking is usually, doesn't matter on an EDF because a prop is gonna tractor, but an EDF fan just doesn't slow you down near as much, okay? We'll see if that fixes it, and we're gonna see right now. So stay tuned, guys. We try to bring you the best in RC here on Brian Phillips RC. So if we answered your questions, we hope you'll smash the like button right now. And if you haven't already clicked the bell to subscribe, when you do, please do so. And if you want to support us financially, buy the planes, buy the batteries, transmitters, receivers, and all that good jazz that we have. The links are in the video description below. Stay tuned, more coming. YouTube, it's Brian Phillips. What do we have here all new from FMS? The F-18. It's actually the F-A-18 64mm V2. This thing is the high fidelity, whatever that means. And it looks high fidelity. When you get up close, the details only get better and better. We are flying ours today with the gear. We're gonna take them off because I can pretty much guarantee you this thing's gonna do better without the gear. We do have a video with Ordnance and it is pretty lame-o. 2200 4S, and we're gonna take off. A little bit of wind helping us from our back right now. We did set ours up with an AR 630, squished in the bottom. The camera crew is gonna move off to the side, and we're gonna take off, throttle cuts off. AS3X turned down to 30 on roll access, this being our second flight. We also have braking turned on. We'll show you how to do that in this series of maidens. Throttle cuts off. Thrust reverse is active. It is controllable in the middle, and then pilot fatigue in the rear, and it does seem to work, but we'll see if the braking fixes our problems from the true maiden. Here we go. Full throttle. She gets in the air fine. Obviously don't need to worry about, ooh, those LEDs are nice. Don't have to worry at all about flaps necessarily or retracts. That is about 70% throttle. Different angle. You guys don't usually see this angle. There are no rudders on this plane. Don't get yourself in a lock. Thing flies pretty good. It's easy to get around, but it's just not very fast. And so as a result, you really got to fly the plane. Oh yeah. So it doesn't seem really all that incredible. There's definitely a little bit of rudder action from the nose gear. AS3X Plus has it feeling pretty easy to fly. Very good roll rate, but at the same time, we set ours up. See, we're already beeping. 3.6 volts, we're already beeping. We used 700 milliamp hours on our first flight, 4S, 2200. You good? Mm-hmm. Guys, having no rudder makes crosswind landings a little bit crazy. And it's beeping again, geez. So what I'm gonna tell you is we're 30C pack right now. I'm wondering if maybe you just need to do a 50C pack like one of our smart packs, and we have an overcorrection there on the roll axis, even at 30, okay? So I'm gonna just see if I can do a touch and go here. Pilot fatigue. Yeah, it didn't work. Just kept flying. So I am out of pilot fatigue, full disclosure. Went below 50, went back above to make sure we still have thrust. Guys, this plane is just, don't plan on the thrust reverse working. It's probably not going to. You'll be disappointed and might even crash, okay? Also, I'm just gonna tell you right now, even though the gear are absolutely fantastic on this plane, they're beautiful. They have rock hard tires like we've seen. Man, just really overcorrecting like crazy today. Again, we turned from 40 to 30 on our AS3X. You guys see what I'm talking about? Spring loaded and very decent ground handling. We'll just slow it down over there. I gotta tell you something, this plane has some of the most beautiful fixed gear we've ever seen. And yet it just doesn't have the power to handle it, okay? Beautiful plane, absolutely gorgeous. But it just doesn't have anything behind it. So it's like, put that in tandem with the thrust reverse not really working. We've tried everything we could too. We tried braking, we tried making an intermediate setting where we would drop the stick below 50%. There seems to be two problems with the Predator ESC on the 40 amp version. We have not experienced that on the big 6 and 8S 90 millimeters, and we haven't experienced it on the 80 millimeter planes. But when we get down to the small size class, there's just something about that fan. Maybe it just has, you know, enough air going through it. It keeps it spinning so it doesn't reverse the thrust. It'll keep going forward or it'll keep going backward. You have to be sub 50% on throttle. Plus, I think you have to have that thing stop. So we turned braking on to see if it would fix it. It did not, okay? So full disclosure, going in the menus, putting the throttle full, plugging in the batteries, doing all that nonsense. There's two different Predator ESCs that FMS offers, one of which has less menu options, one of which has more. This one seems to be the Beatles option, okay? So if you find a manual and it's first in Chinese and then second in English, and it says Beatles, that's the one that seems to go with this. We will show that at the end of this series of flights.
If your ESC manual looks like the directions, the way they're laid out, that's the wrong one. That's like the old Predator
If it looks like a website screenshot, that is not the one you want.
That's also wrong.
At least not in our plane.
Right.
So Yeah, you can do controllable thrust reverse, but the pilot fatigue just doesn't work. And to be frank with you, I've got flaperons set up on this. I haven't even tried them because the thing is, you just really kind of don't need them on this plane, okay? And I am a big fan of needing flaps. Why? Because I love the wide flight envelope of a plane that can slow down. This plane does not act like it wants to slow down, nor does it act like it's got enough oomph with the 30C China Hobby Line 2200 4S. So probably what we need to do is we're gonna go inside, we're gonna pop the gear off, we're gonna throw in what we should have at the beginning, which is a Smart Pack 4S 50C pack, which is considerably more expensive, and we're gonna see how it does. Because this thing deserves a hand launch and it deserves to not have gear. But I'm gonna tell you one other thing about this plane. If you haven't already seen the rest of the flights, I can tell you right now, these landing gear, while they are absolutely gorgeous, and they really are, and they did handle a relatively rough landing, okay? I've never had a 64 where I can put it down super smooth. Part of the reason is because I have no rudders, I can't slip, I have no flaps, so I can't use flaps. Well, in this case, I set up flaps, but I haven't even tried them yet. I wanna get into a flare with a plane like this, right? The other thing too is an F-15 in a similar size class. I crashed into that tree. That's how it got to be in the Eagle killing zone. That was an E-Flight offering made by FMS. Then we did the FMS one. And I just tell you this right now, fixed gear on jets to me is a big off-put. But if you're gonna do them, at least do them gorgeously like they did on this plane. We have this simulated oleo strut thingy back here. We've got this pole thing that would normally drop down and they would use that in an aircraft carrier. But this thing is ultra detailed. Here's one of my issues with it. These are glue-on missiles. Our missiles came with two of this side. Even though they painted this one gray, they had the fins mounted wrong. We had to modify it to make it mount. We'll show you that in the unbox build radio setup, which is exhaustive.
Exhausting.
And I say exhaustive because we covered all the details we could think to cover, with the exception of reprogramming the ESC for braking. Now, I'm gonna show you braking right now just so you can see. I'm in hard braking. Throttle off. You see how it jerks the plane? It's not totally impossible that I'm jerking the plane just a little bit and causing it to oscillate, which is why my master gain is just below 50. There's 50. I started probably just a hair above. So I need to go from 40 on roll to 30, which is what we're on now, to probably 20, okay? So we're gonna lower that gain, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna take off these gear, 1, 2, 3, 4 screws, and then one grub screw. This is 1.5 millimeters, this is 2 millimeters, and we're gonna get a bigger battery, and we're gonna see if this thing will do hand launch belly land. But get this, these missiles are gonna wanna rip off when you land. Why are we having missiles that are glued on that you have to make a permanent decision on when we have fixed gear that are removable? I don't quite understand that. If somebody could leave that in the comments below so I could better understand exactly the rationalization. And why do I want to rip off this beautiful artwork here?
Yeah.
Look at that. It is so
Super
beautiful.
detailed.
It says do not paint, and then they painted it.
And then we're gonna rip it off.
And we're gonna rip it off when we land, unless we do it just right. And I'm gonna tell you what, those missiles are coming off. Yeah. They will, okay? If you know you're gonna belly land, don't put them on. And I'm gonna just tell you this right now. If you're buying this plane, don't plan on wheels up, wheels down, okay? Just don't. Just save yourself the trouble. It's gonna be a hand launch, and it's gonna land in tall grass like this if you wanna keep those beautiful details, okay? That's what we're gonna do next. Guys, if we haven't already said this, I just wanna let you know, we love RC airplanes, but we have very high expectations of them. This is a great model. It's built well, it's solid, it's got all the makings of near perfection, and yet they left out rudders. We have LEDs. We have the potential for flaps. It's very easy to set up the flaperons on this, by the way. And it's got enough power to get the job done, so long as you take the gear off. But you gotta remember, guys, when you get these little 64s, if you want performance like an 80, you're not gonna get it, okay? It's gonna hurt your soul, okay? If you need a backyard flyer, fine. This thing ain't gonna fly in your backyard unless you got 20 acres. It's a big plane. It's a big plane speed. It's a big plane performance. It takes room to develop. You're not gonna land in tight quarters that I can see. So we're gonna pop off the gear. We're gonna see if I can prove myself wrong on all those fronts. If you want one, which by the way, this thing is gorgeous. Check it out, links in the video description below. If you wanna support us otherwise, we have Patreon, monthly support, YouTube, super thanks. YouTube members, also monthly support, and PayPal, any of which are much appreciated, but we'd rather you just buy an amazing product like this if you like it. But remember, we're all about the full truth, nothing but the truth, so help us God. I'm Brian Phillips, RC. Because at the end of the day, anybody can get on and say, this is the best thing ever, I love it, and FMS can do no wrong. Okay, because that's not true, right? They do. So anyway, we're gonna show you hand launch next. Or it's not next. Maybe it was already seen at the beginning. All I've got to say is we appreciate you being here. Don't forget to smash the like button if you enjoyed the content or if we saved you a few bucks. Maybe we redirected your bucks into what you really wanted, okay? Stay tuned. All right, guys, so we're in swapping out batteries. It's just the landing gear off, and I'm switching my braking to soft braking, so I'm just gonna show you that process because hard braking is evidently a little bit too much. I think it's inducing a roll. So throttle cuts off, throttle sticks all the way up. We're gonna jump into the menu. We'll just show you this. We may only show this. We tried hard braking, it was too much. Okay, so you're listening for the beeps of the ESC. There's the beep, 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 beep. That's going into the menu. One is braking on or reverse on or off. 2, move your stick down. Listening for 2. There's 1 that would be off for braking. This would be normal function. 2, which by the way is the default.
Soft.
Now turn it up and then back down. Now it's gonna. Okay. So throttle cuts off. Now I just want to show you how much less aggressive it is. Definitely stops. But it's just not stopping as aggressively. Okay, so throttle cuts back on, disconnect, goes back. I was just using a battery action, interestingly enough, from like the Bell 206 there. Any 4S battery should be fine to get this thing started. They do call out a relatively big battery. That's kind of interesting. That's a 3,000 milliamp hour battery.
Oh,
I didn't even think about that. That's a pretty small battery.
Yeah.
And it didn't even occur to me to use it, but I was using it to set up the ESC. Maybe we could try a bigger one later. But we are starting a brand new, off the shelf, 2200 4S, and it just beeped. This is a smart back, and yes, set it to 240 hours auto discharge. Put your finger here. It's warm. We were charging at 11 amps. So this thing is allowed to be charged at 11 amps. That's the full speed, okay? Which is pretty crazy, and that took, what, like 2 minutes? One of the reasons I love smart packs is you can use and abuse them, and they will protect you from yourself because the software in this little chip protects it from itself to a certain extent. It's only gonna let you do what it can handle on the charging side, but not necessarily on the discharging side. Really disappointed with the China hobby line on this particular apparatus, but gear and Ordnance, I just think you're gonna come to the same conclusion I have. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong with this plane, it just means there's something right with taking the gear off of it, okay? So we're gonna load the battery in here, double check the CG, because remember, the CG may have changed a little bit. Also, huge long line, be careful you don't get into your steerable, unless of course, you're just flying it with wheels off the plane. Okay, so I'm gonna go back just a hair, a little bit more on the elevator would be nice. Pressing this down, this is a slightly thinner pack than the China hobby lines that we started with. And you can see that's wrapping up and around the edge, okay? So that's maybe not so good. I need to probably push this down. We had a hard time getting the batteries loaded the first go around, okay? And also, you'll notice that I just pressed down to actually load that without the batteries on, and I bent over my fin.
Oh,
Son of a gun. Do not paint, fin. Do not press too hard or you'll have that same problem, folks. So that's one thing we noticed about this plane is it's challenging to load the pack, especially when you get up on the edge like that of the battery. I've always struggled with that, trying to get it wrapped around. I try to get those down and to the side like that. Once you've got the Velcro attached, it sometimes works. And then I'll take my thumb and I'll press on that while I pull the strap. And it just wants to always walk it in a circle. So it kind of rolls around the battery. If you guys come up with a great solution, let me know. Also, you want to make sure this doesn't get interfered with by the extra loop of Velcro, okay? So throttle cuts on, timer's cleared, back to 5 minutes. And as you know, the IC3 and the XT60 are not directly compatible, but they do work.
And sometimes with some of these XT60s, we have a heck of a time actually fitting in there. And by the way, if you guys are watching this video, this is the Beatles ESC manual. This is the second page, it's in English. And basically, we'll zoom in on this. This is how you enter. If you need to pause, you can pause. And then over here, you can see this. This is the settings, okay? Pause the screen if you need to. You can download that by following the link in the video description to get the plane. And then you can scroll down, look for accessories, and then you just search for the Predator ESC. There's two of them though. One shows up as like for the F-16 and it's red in color, and this one's blue in color. So it's get the Beatles manual, okay? All right, so without further ado, we're gonna plug this in real quick. We'll show you the process. So in you go. Now guys, on Brian Phillips RC, we try to show the entire process, okay? Sometimes that makes our videos a little bit more long and tedious, but we're looking out for your bottom dollar and best experience possible. AR-631 worked really good up inside this cavity, but we also reduced our rates, and I'm just gonna show you that real quick. We started with 40, so I'm gonna click, go down to forward programming. Once we go into forward programming, we're gonna go to gyro settings, AS3X settings, AS3X gains, and we're down to 20. We started at 40, and remember, you gotta do that for safe too, if you have safe equipped, okay? So again, it was 40, 50, 60, now it's 20, 50, 60, okay? And that's gonna be true, and that's gonna allow us to keep our gains about that 50% mark. The thing has huge roll authority, but partly because we set up flaperons, which means I probably have more gain than I need, because these things move further than they would have been designed to move, okay? Now taking the lead, one other trick, you can slide this in by your battery if you want. Camera crew, are you gonna show them? Make sure that this doesn't prevent you from getting your cover on, but then that's out of the way of your steerable. Now your steerable is still gonna work even though there's nothing attached. So if you're one of those people, kind of like me, that insist on having a rudder, there is a tip, and we've done this on other planes. You can build yourself an apparatus, either using the nose gear, or you can get yourself something that's like this. Say you crash this and you break this beautiful landing gear, which is beautiful, by the way. You could cut this up, you can mount that on there, and you can put yourself a clear fin, and it will act exactly like a rudder with very limited work. Now also, I just want to point out, we have a broken missile here. I don't even know how that broke. We were landing with gear. I don't remember ever getting in a situation where that would have been broken. But I can tell you this one is the correct one. This one was incorrect. We had to modify it to work. But if you plan to belly land, and I know you will, don't plan to install these. They're only going to tear up the ground and or be torn off of your plane. I did glue all the way down the length on both sides and in this pocket. I'm very tempted to rip them off right now, but I know it's gonna basically foobar them. So I'm just gonna leave them on there until such a time as they rip. And if you're anything like me, you're gonna want these missiles installed, okay? Because they look super cool. And even if I wasn't gonna fly with missiles, I'd want the missile rails, despite the fact that they do block largely the green LED. The red, for whatever reason, seems to glow nicely. So beautiful plane, lots of details to share. To get the most out of these hand-launched 64s takes a lot more effort than just opening a brand new 80mm Futura, for example, which is going to be a phenomenal experience. Or a BAE Hawk, phenomenal experience. But my camera crew is reminding me, not everybody has the budget for 6S batteries, not everybody has the budget for that plane. It is more expensive, but I just want to remind you something. To get the small, cool planes, and this is gorgeous. Version 3, by the way, not 2, I may have misspoke. My apologies in advance if I did or have said that wrong. This is actually V3. They call it the high fidelity version, whatever that means. This plane has all the makings of an amazing plane. But I'm telling you, when you belly land beautiful planes, they get unbeautified very quick. So just be prepared for that and understand what you're getting into. Because here on Brian Phillips RC, we want you guys to have a good experience. And that includes knowing what you're getting into. China's going to tell you this thing is going to be everything to everybody for every situation. This is not true. Okay? All right. Hand launch next. YouTube, it's Brian Phillips, F-18, V3. If I say V2 in the rest of the video, my apologies. Made by FMS, 64mm. We have all the stuff that makes your plane terrible off. Don't put these on if you fly this plane the way it should be. And the way it should be is like this. Clean, right? I've got mine set up with safe, launch assist via AS3X Plus. Throttle cuts off, gains are set, 20 on roll for both AS3X and safe, just so you know. I don't know the best way to hand launch this, but I'm gonna just throw caution to the wind. Full throttle, brand new 50C pack, 2200, very slightly tail heavy.
With no voltage alarm, right?
No voltage alarm because it's a Gen 2.
Okay.
The wind is coming from that direction. I'm gonna go full throttle. We're gonna try to use this grass as our oh crap moment. Full throttle. There we go. Hand launch assist did not quite give me enough, but it was still okay. Okay, coming out of safe now. All right, here we go, guys. AS3X. We turned down our gains just a little bit, so I gotta crank my R knob just a little bit. Remember, this is a bank and jank. Where are you?
Right next to you.
Oh yeah, that's what you want, guys. Don't just throw away the gear when you open the box. This plane does not need landing gear. It's just gonna make your life terrible. Look at that thing, guys. Look at that thing. I'm telling you, it is the difference between night and day, folks. A little bit more gains. I gotta say also, janking it, I am just ever so slightly tail heavy. I probably push my battery forward a 1/4 inch. Not having any yaw authority kills me, especially with presentation passes, because you just don't have what you want. And I can say the 50C pack seems to help a little bit. It's still not a powerhouse, but look at that, about 30% throttle. We'll do an inside pass here, excuse me. Man, that thing cruises. I'm with the wind though. Hard on the throttle, up and around. Okay, I wanna see how the flaperons work in this configuration. Here's takeoff flaps. Ooh, good. There's full landing flaps. Ooh, yeah, there we go, hard on the throttle. Up you go. Why up, you might say, in that move? Because I don't have a rudder. That echoed. Guys, I gotta say, throw the gear away. It is a complete waste of your life. You don't want the gear. The wheels up, wheels down. Oh, she's waving. Too much. Guys, I went to the outside hole on my aileron so I could make the flaperons work. My suggestion would be to use the hole that they suggest. You'll have a better experience. Because honestly, the thing is pretty rock solid in terms of its roll correction. I wonder if we could use that AS3X Plus feature. You guys see the ups, you see the roll rate. You don't need that much roll rate. I'm barely touching the sticks, but I wanted that for my flaperons, folks. Also, those inboard most missiles that have to get glued onto the airframe, don't do it, guys. You don't want it. Upside down flight performance, it seems fine. It's nothing to write home about. I'm not gonna fly it upside down much anyway. Here we go. That is a good high-speed pass, folks. LEDs, thank you, FMS, for LEDs. Yes, the thrust reverse does technically turn on, but I wouldn't plan on it working because you may not be able to activate it. We tried all sorts of different things. We do have soft braking on, which was not on by default, to help us achieve what we wanted to achieve. Boy, oh boy, that thing looks good with the gear gone, doesn't it?
It does.
I mean, it makes the plane, guys. If you guys are planning on buying this for wheels up, wheels down, just don't. Save your money, buy something different. FMS makes a lot of really good planes. I'm gonna just suggest that. That is a strictly opinion-based premise, but I just want you guys to understand something. We have flown a lot of planes. We have flown a lot of planes. Okay, try safe. Here's safe. Wow, look at that overcorrection.
You're significantly over your previous times.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so with safe, as you can see, I gotta really jank that stick to get it around. If you guys are gonna use this safe, and you don't need flaps, so I'm gonna try flaps. Okay, so here comes takeoff flaps, a little bit of down, landing flaps, a little bit of down. As you can see, it slows down. Okay, out of the flaps altogether. Yeah, there's a lot of overcorrection there, but you can technically fly it with safe. Okay, I'm coming out of safe now. Okay, out of safe. That's like 40% throttle.
Guys, without rudders, the way I fly low to the ground like this, it's just scary because you're always on the edge of failure. You're always one little tiny muscle memory error from complete and utter devastating crash. And by the way, I would say this pack is doing way better. Here's our timer for 5 minutes. 5 minutes is probably what we're gonna take. Also, now we have to land. So camera crew, let's just try landing in the grass. Let's go back on the runway. Okay guys, I'm gonna do my best to just get out over the trees. We'll relax into a bit of a final. Okay, remember, no rudder, so you can't slip. And when you turn on flaperons, you lose some of your roll authority. Okay, so just takeoff flaps. Okay, full landing flaps. Okay, out of the flaps. Okay, there it is. All right, that was pretty painless. That was our best flight. And
Yes.
I still feel like it was weak. Here's why. I put my ailerons in the outside hole on the servos. Way too much amplitude. Yes, it certainly helped with flaperons because yes, look at that deployment, guys. On landing flaps, I can really put those suckers down. By the way, a little bit more up elevator is needed. So I'm gonna scroll in here, flap system. I'm gonna go to like, see how it's minus? I'm gonna go like minus 20, okay? All I can say is this plane demands more than 30C. They call for 30C, right?
25.
25.
Actually.
This plane's gonna suck on 25C. Do not do 25C. We used the 50C pack. It seemed to give us a lot better command of the aircraft. Having the nose gear, and by the way, the nose gear and mains are quite nice on this plane. But this plane is quite terrible with landing gear. And it's even worse with Ordnance. It barely flies. In my opinion, yes, you could go around in a very, scale, sort of like going over town for like a normal security sorties. But if you want this thing to look like a Blue Angels or an aerobatic, show of some sort, you aren't going to do it with the landing gear. You just aren't. It's going to be lame and not fun, okay? Now, that being said, it does fly. It is technically an airplane, okay? Also, I just want to point out the things I knew was going to happen. Yep, and that was a pretty good landing.
It was good landing.
Okay, and look, I've already lost right there.
Yep.
We found it. Guys, do not paint. Look at this. Look at these missiles. What a joke. I knew that was going to happen. Damage all over. Give me that thing you picked up. And then we've got this. First flight, first landing for a belly land.
And that was a good landing.
And that was a good landing, folks. I got to say, this is the sort of stuff that just irritates me. We review all these beautiful planes and we know better, okay? Meaning we've seen what they can do. We know what they can do. And what this plane can't do is fly with gear, all right? Let's just be honest. This plane is good as a hand launch plane. But then why do they make us glue these on? That should be magnetically attached. These are gorgeous. That ought to be on one piece of plastic with a magnetic attachment point. This is V3, for goodness sakes. So now that you know those things, we're gonna give you an elaborate explanation on how to set it up wrong, like we did. Put this on the second hole out. Go in 2 holes. So you're the second hole out of 4. Okay, the second hole out of 4. Can you see it there? That's gonna give you way less output on your ailerons. It's gonna roll less aggressively and less out of control, but your stabilizer is gonna be able to work, okay? Right now, it's just too much, okay? You're gonna give up that much flaperon deflection and you're probably gonna end up with more like that for your landing flaps. And guess what? It's gonna be a lot better plane because of it, okay? You're gonna lose these things right away. So if you plan to belly land, this thing is long enough, and when you drag it in, especially at higher speeds, that was a pretty good landing, okay? I was not unhappy with it. It felt okay. I could probably slow it down a little bit more, but remember, this has such a long body on it, you're gonna smack it down then. So then you're gonna have another problem. Instead of pulling it back, you're gonna rip it out.
Yeah, exactly.
It's gonna push it in, okay? So, as always with 64s, you get what you pay for. Now, does that mean this is a bad plane? No, and I don't want you guys to hear me wrong. A lot of this is highly subjective, and it really is, okay? We spent a ton of energy trying to make this plane do all the things.
And I do it every time we have a 64. And every time I come back and say, just set it up, ailerons, rudder, elevator. In this case, rudder is the steerable, okay? That's about as good as you're gonna get. You can put a little AS3X in there, slather that on thick, use the correct holes here. Don't worry about the amount of deflection for landing flaps because you probably aren't gonna use them that much anyway. I can't believe these didn't break off.
I can't either.
They're coming off before the next flight, that's for sure. Because there's no reason to add the drag.
Right.
Okay? LEDs are bright, body is perfect until your second flight or at the end of your first flight, whichever way you want to look at that. So all my same concerns are true for this plane as they have been for many other 64s. Not the least of which is, where are my rudders? They make 3-gram servos and smaller. Why can't we have a 5-gram servo in this wing? Why? So, from now on, when I do a 64, I'm gonna forget everything I've done in the past, overcomplicating the heck out of these planes. This is where I make promises I break later.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say.
I'm gonna just do it normal, and it's gonna be fine.
Right,
Okay?
no.
So if you watch our unbox build radio setup, we spend like 30 minutes on thrust reverse, which yes, it does technically work. Oh, throttle cut. Reverse thrust. Forward thrust is on. Now it switches. We found out that below 50%, the thrust reverse will switch. But that presupposes it's a static test. When you're dynamic and flying, all bets are off on the small ESCs and the small EDFs, like this. On the 90s, they were perfect, and it's just an exhilarating experience. You bring in this 90, you slow it down, you roll it right to your feet, and you're like, wow, that was awesome, I'm the best pilot ever. You feel that way, okay? That's a feeling I like. You probably like it too. You're an RC pilot, or you want to be one. And if you want to be one, you're in the right place. I'm Brian Phillips, RC, because we're going to help get you from the chair to the air. And by the way, yes, that is a building pad for a giant dam gift shop next to the dam, which is where the damn runway is going to be, in case you guys were wondering. So we can't wait to show you all the progress. In the meantime, if you need something to wet your whistle, maybe this is for you. Maybe it's not. I'm going to tell you this. FMS makes a good plane. I don't want to put them into an impossible mold. But the truth is, when you make a plane to belly land, why are you putting missiles that are glued on? When you make a plane to belly land, why do we not have thrust reverse that works? Fix the Predator ESC stuff. It's not that hard, guys. The avians work perfectly every time, okay? They're more expensive, sure. They depend on the Spectrum technology, sure. But at the end of the day, we have Predators that work. I want it to work every time, and it doesn't. And I've had many crashes. In fact, our maiden flight, you'll see, woo, full speed. This is after hours and hours of toilless expert troubleshooting, okay? We didn't get it. Then we did some more expert troubleshooting, and we didn't get it with braking, okay? So lots of different frustrations for us on this model. And while it is beautiful, and it really is beautiful, are those made of plastic or metal?
I think they're plastic. I'm sure.
Yeah, they feel like plastic. They're just painted. I'm gonna glue that back in as soon as you get inside. All I'm gonna say is, get a bigger pack than you think you need, in terms of bigger C rating. So our China Hobby Line 30Cs were not quite sufficient, in my opinion, because we were beeping at 3.6 sagging, like after 2 minutes of flight. Not enough. 50C smart pack. I'll show you where we have it. Beautiful latch mechanism, by the way. And yes, this plane has the CG marked on the wing.
It does, yeah.
Finally. But could we get all the other things that we need at the same time? Evidently, in RC, the answer is no. So, people like Brian Phillips RC have a reason to exist. So that's good and bad. If things were perfect out of the box, we wouldn't exist. We've been doing this for almost 9 years. Thousands of videos. What does that tell you? There's no guarantees, except for death and taxes. And the fact that I'm going to be frustrated about a 64 millimeter EDI jet.
Yeah.
That being said, it is beautiful. It's a licensed product from Boeing, and I like that. Those are all cool things. There are so many things that they check the box on. Check, check, check. No, no, no. The things that we need are good flight performance, the ability to land without damaging the aircraft, rudders. LEDs are nice, but they're not needed, even though I want them. Flaps. Why don't we have inboard flaps? So many different things I could say, and I'm going to hold some of it back to myself just to burn in my soul. But I got to say, I love the F-18. I wanted more. You might too. But it is still good, okay? Take it for what it's worth. A lot of subjectivity in this review, but I am going to tell you this. The plane is not a loser. It's not a garbage. It's not a throwaway. It's not a dynam sort of thing where you spend 3 hours building it. We spent that time trying to get it to do the things we wanted that it wasn't really supposed to do. And we really should have just taken for what it is, which is a really fast looking plane. It looks fast flying. That's pretty much what you get. Don't expect to 3D fly this plane. If you do, congratulations. You've done something different than I did. I don't think you're going to find success doing it, okay? You can fly it pretty tail heavy if you're into that sort of thing. I'm not. I want it to fly good. I want it to land good. I don't want it to self-destruct and commit hara-kiri every time you land, okay? Lots of different thoughts. Hopefully we answered your questions. This Maiden series of flights will help you answer all of them. You're probably seeing this first because, yeah, that was the best one. Okay, so if you want more answers, leave them in the comments below. Our questions, leave your questions in the comments below, and I'll try to give you answers. If you want to support Brian Phillips RC, look no further than the video description below. You can see this. We also do talk about turning on the braking and how to do it, because there is some conflicting information. If you look it up on fmsmodel.com, we will help you solve that problem if you think it's going to help you switch from forward to reverse. But it won't. Here on Brian Phillips RC, we show the whole process. That includes thinking through options. That includes sometimes failing. We want you to learn how to be a better RC pilot, how to be a better RC repairer, and how to be a better RC enthusiast. And the only way we know to do that is to help you do the things that you want to do, okay? By the way, if you're a beginner, do not buy this plane. It is not for you. I don't care what idiot online tells you it is. It is absolutely not for you.
No.
You will crash it. It will be a miserable experience.
Yeah.
This thing is challenging for me to fly, as configured, admittedly, and even with AS3X Plus. I felt like we just didn't have quite what we needed here, okay? I'm going to move those to the inner holes. That's one thing I'm going to do. I'm going to glue these things back together, and we might even have one more flight. But the truth is, I can tell you this. When I have high expectations of a plane, I'm let down. I always have high expectations of every plane, which makes it hard for these manufacturers. You might not, okay? But I do. All right, not just because of the weight of the fact that so many people are watching these videos, making purchasing decisions, because we want to give you guys the full truth, nothing but the truth, so help us God, on Brian Phillips RC. We want these plane manufacturers to be held accountable when something comes out and it's maybe not amazing, okay? Not like they did anything wrong here. It's just, it wasn't right enough. You get what I'm saying? I hope you do. We like FMS. They make a good plane. And by the way, if your expectations are set at a reasonable, moderate level, you'll probably really like this plane. But I just wanted it to be everything to everybody, and it just wasn't. All right, more to come from Brian Phillips RC right around the corner. Thanks for watching, guys. If you want to get one of these, look in the video description below. You can buy from the links. You'll support us. Also, Patreon, monthly support. YouTube members, monthly support. YouTube super thanks, one-time donations, and PayPal for one-time donations. But we still firmly believe the best way to do it is to buy your own instead of trying to live vicariously through Brian Phillips RC. Come back for more.